Well, today I would like to talk about. Okay. Well, today I would like to talk about reboots or remakes or whatever you like to call them. Honestly, in my honest opinion, most movies should never be remade because it ruins the iconicism of that movie. Take for example, RoboCop. That movie was so iconic, the original, that it was... Honestly, I was only, what, 5 when that movie came out. I think about, I was born in 1986. And trust me, I didn't watch it when I was 6 years old, but when I was old enough, I watched it. That movie was so iconic that when they actually made a reboot of the same movie, but tried to actually put in 2 films instead of just 1 film, because in the original you never saw his wife until the second movie. But in this one, in the remake of RoboCop, you saw Alex Murphy's wife in the next 45 minutes of the film. Or, yeah, after he goes off to work, after the car explodes. And from the reboot. And then after that, you saw her practically in the whole, near the end. That's why I say, honestly, I love the original RoboCop because it was so iconic that it spanned over 3 films. That's how epic that franchise was. And honestly, some reboots should never be remade, like that film. Or honestly, I'm a little skeptical about remaking Power Rangers, but it's already out. So, but I'm a little skeptical of its rebootism standard, because that's Power Rangers. That has history. Same with RoboCop. You can't just remake something and expect people to enjoy it. It's just like Ninja Turtles. When they actually remade that franchise too, they rebooted it with bigger turtles, with bigger shells. I'm thinking to myself, the older ones are much better than the newer films. Even with Megan Fox, I don't care. It's the principle of the thing. I just don't see remakes panning out the way they should. Honestly, they tried to reboot Rush Hour also with a TV series, correct? But also the actual series tried to cram in that whole film in 1 hour. The first film in 1 hour. And I was like, what the hell is this? Why are they trying to cram in that film in 1 hour? I was thinking to myself, huh? It would have made more sense if Jackie Chan's character and Chris Tucker's character, who were in the TV series, were actually their relatives, like, what's it called? Like, their sons or something, or their cousin, named after them, after the movies. And then Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker would appear in maybe one episode of the Rush Hour TV series. That would have made more sense, because those movies were awesome. Now that I look back on it, that TV series should have never been made. It tried too hard to be Rush Hour. And same goes for RoboCop too. I'm like, when they remade it in 2014, they tried too hard. I mean, even though you got Samuel L. Jackson, and that's still not enough. You gotta follow the original script of what made the iconic role of RoboCop. And honestly, out of all the remakes I've ever seen, the only remake I actually like was The Karate Kid with Jackie Chan and Jaden Smith. That's the only one that made sense to me. That's the only movie that actually works in this remake era of remakes. If you're going back into the echelon of movies. But when they remade RoboCop, they ruined it. They debacled it. I don't care how good the actors are. They ruined that film. And because they just ruined it. I'm just gonna say that. And honestly, it's like, it's because I'm disabled, man. That's why I'm always sitting in what makes me more comfortable, to answer your question. Like I was saying, with remakes, it doesn't make sense to me. Why would you remake stuff that would probably ruin that franchise? That's why I say, if you're gonna make remakes, don't remake them. Make sequels if you're gonna actually make a reboot thing. Do not. I urge film directors, don't make reboots, because that ruins that franchise, depending on what it is. Just don't. I would say make sequels if you're gonna actually make a reboot. Do not even bother with reboots, because I will personally say, at this point in time, I do not urge people to make reboots at all, or remakes of the same thing, because it just doesn't work. Sequels work because, depending on what it is, it probably might work. Like Independence Day, even though I haven't seen it yet. That's okay, man. Even though I haven't seen it yet, I'm going to probably buy it eventually. But who's to say? I wonder when they're gonna ever make Bad Boys 3. That movie is is what I'm really waiting for. But I'm gonna probably have to buy it on Blu-ray if it ever comes out. But remakes in video games, I probably wouldn't recommend it because, again, I'm talking about reboots and remakes in general, because it probably will ruin it depending on what it is. Final Fantasy, they keep talking about a remake. This is on the same topic, but in a different category. I wouldn't hold my breath when it comes to that franchise. Don't expect Final Fantasy to ever come out of Square Enix, because they're working on the Avengers project, which that's gonna take maybe 5 years. And Highlander never came out too, and I was expecting something like that game to come out, but never did. But because, and they gotta work on Kingdom Hearts 3 still, and that hasn't been announced at all. So, on the subject of remakes, Final Fantasy isn't one of their top priorities at all. In another version of a thing that needs to be remade. But I'm mainly gonna talk about movies. Like I'm saying, the whole thing about remakes, usually they suck because they forgot how great that movie was. I mean, just because it's got the same name doesn't mean it's gonna be good. And in retrospect to that, remakes, in my honest opinion, if it's not made by, Disney, because it's their own franchise, if they're gonna plan on remaking something like a cartoon or Maleficent from the Disney standpoint, I would say go for it, because it's their own franchise and they know what they're doing. I'm not gonna mess with that. But when it comes to everything else, they ruin. Like Iron Man 2 was so bad, even though it was a direct sequel of Iron Man 1. It was so bad that the script was so bad that I wanted to walk out of the movie theater, and because the first one was so good. Okay, this is what happens when Disney owns a franchise that they shouldn't be owning. I mean, even though Disney is a powerhouse right now, they're good with their own franchises like Beauty and the Beast and Lion King. They could remake those into live action films. But do not mess with Marvel. I mean, they bought Marvel and look it. They ruined it. I mean, I have no problem with Robert Downey Jr. I have no problem with certain things that they did in Iron Man 2. But if you're only gonna have one villain, then you're wasting too much money on CG. you only have Whiplash as the main bad guy. I was expecting the 4 henchmen of the Mandarin, not just Whiplash. Four. But again, when it comes to back to what I was talking about. When it comes to Disney remakes of Beauty and the Beast and Maleficent, they're good. But when it comes to Iron Man, they suck. Iron Man 2 was so awesome because it wasn't debacled by Disney. It wasn't butchered by Disney. And in my honest opinion. But Iron Man 3 was just as bad. Even though... And... See, that's not a remake. That's a sequel. And that has a fan base just as big as any one of these iconic franchises that I've mentioned. And honestly, I was like watching it like, really? Like, that's how bad it was. And I was thinking that lady from Iron Man 3 was Obadiah Stane's daughter, Madame Mask, because she went all crazy and stuff. So I'm like, huh? That would have made more sense to me. But even then, that's a sequel, not a remake. So, when it comes to certain things, sequels are just as bad as reboots. In this case, Iron Man 2 was bad, Iron Man 3 was bad, Iron Man 1 was awesome, but after that, they all sucked. Don't get me wrong, Scarlett Johansson is a very beautiful woman, but come on, she's not Russian. I mean, I'm like expecting a Russian girl. I'm like, huh? But in hindsight to that, I hope if they ever plan on rebooting Iron Man or anything like that, don't ruin it. They've already ruined Star Wars, Disney. Even though it's made $80 million, that's besides the point, in my perspective. See, for me, remakes and reboots or sequels, depending on what it is, should be thought out and planned as a better one than the first. Not just some slap-happy thing that you hope to make $80 million or have a budget of $80 million and make $180 million. Sometimes just making money is not the whole point of it. The whole point is the story and what gives the reboot its purpose. Why would you remake something so iconic like Power Rangers? I like the original Power Rangers movie. Honestly, I'm gonna tell you right now, I've watched the whole series from when it first came out. But I'm tired of seeing Gold. What? Just because our president likes gold, you put a Gold Ranger in the new series? Come on. That's stupid. This is totally off topic, but I'm gonna get my point across eventually. If anything needs to be rebooted, it needs to be the color schemes that needs to be done when it comes to the Power Rangers series. Because I'm tired of seeing gold, I'm tired of seeing silver. I want something different. Like, if orange would be a nice color to revamp the color scheme of Power Rangers series. I mean, come on! I could be talking about different subjects and it will lead into a remake of different colors or whatever. See, but for me, I don't want to see gold anymore or silver in that case. For Power Rangers, that's the worst when it comes to using different colors. You know how long it took them to utilize purple? 16 seasons. That's way too long for a different color scheme. What, 17, what, I think, it was Mystic Force that actually had the first purple Mystic Ranger. But then he turned red, crimson again, and the moon sorceress was actually the purple one from then on. So, but then they got rid of her character too. So, I'm just saying, if anything needs to be recolorized or remade, it needs to be the color schemes of the Power Rangers, because I'm tired of seeing gold and silver as the Sixth Ranger. The only ones that I liked were in Zeo and in Mystic Force. Those are the only two Gold Rangers that I actually liked because the design of the costume. Everything else was boring. But I'm just saying, well, when it comes to remakes and reboots, in general, they gotta fit. If I'm gonna honestly, if I was a director, I would have to think long and hard. Will people hate me for rebooting this? Or will they love it so much that they forget about the original film? Which I don't want people to forget the original film of what made that film for this film great. Because nowadays people forget the original film and only talk about the new one. I will never forget the original Star Wars. That film, or even 1, 2, and 3, which people hated, but I don't know why. Without the 4, 5, and 6, there would be no 1, 2, and 3. But I will never convince myself. I will never watch Episode 7. I will never watch Rogue One. If you're gonna make a sequel or make a different part of the story of Star Wars, make it about Starkiller. If anything, I mean, that would have been nice, but nope. Because it's owned by Disney. They're not gonna do it. They just want to get the older actors, so they have something to say that they did. Which, if you're gonna make a new part of the story, you don't need the older actors to be part of your film. They gotta learn. Actors need to learn how to stand on their own 2 feet without the older generation getting involved. If they want that film to be successful, you didn't really need the older actors to intervene. So, in retrospect, because those older films were iconic, it's like, and allegedly they said it was supposed to take place, 40 years, 60 years, 100 years in the future? The future is technically boring, so, in some cases, in that kind of setting, so, who knows. But, if it was me, what I'm ultimately trying to say, I would have to think, like I was saying, I would have to think long and hard for me to actually come up with a good sequel or a good reboot to actually reboot that franchise. I wouldn't even call it a reboot. I would call it a prequel to the other franchises or the other movies, because reboots or remakes should never actually, depending on what it is, should never exist. Because it just ruins the original film. In my observation of watching movies and all that other stuff. So, that's gonna be it. Well, I'm gonna probably game it up a little later. So, but who knows? So, check you guys later.
Text to speech unavailable here. Text to speech unavailable here.